11/2021. Order, can I have a roll call, please? What are you doing, man? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do everything I got. You got it?
Mr. Barbarullo?
Here.
Mrs. Fialovich? Mr. Ricken?
Here.
Mrs. Mahan?
Present.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Here.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Present.
Mr. Spindell? Mr. Banther?
Here. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law is enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of, and to attend the meetings of the public bodies, at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with provisions of this Act, the Fair Law and Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having a date, time, and place thereof, distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Board of Education Administrative Office, and sent to the Bergen Record and Star Ledger. The announcement posting for the policy meeting along with the date, time, and place thereof was distributed on November 8, 2021. Items discussed during the closed work session of November 11, 2021 may include personnel matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations, and/or grievances, tactics and techniques utilized in protecting safety, public safety and property. Results of these discussions will be made public as soon as possible. As per Governor Murphy's Executive Order 251, masks must be worn the entire time in the building for the duration of the meeting, and while speaking, proper PPE will be made available. Join me in a flag salute, please. Thank you, everybody.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first we're going to do is, well, no, not going to, we have to discuss all these policies. So, I'm going to start with policy 0167. Nick, you want to kick this off, or you want to have Denise do it, or what do you want?
No, I'm gonna have Denise kick this off, but before we kick off the meeting, this is our second policy meeting now that we're having this school year, in true finishing, as we had promised that we would do, in light of our policy audit that we did. So we're moving along, so I appreciate the consistency with this. And we're moving into now the next batch of policies, some that are on here for first readings, some that are on here in second readings, some that we talked that we would bring back to this committee, such as we know public participation in board meetings was definitely one that we wanted to speak about tonight, and maybe bring some closure to it. So this is just our standard policy meeting, and I just appreciate everybody being here in our new digs, Memorial Middle School, our media center. It's been like the board meeting, Rolling Stones traveling tour, it feels like. We've been in the DCAP, we've been in room 19, we've been in the auditorium, we've been in the media center at the high school, and now we're here at Memorial. So I'm kind of liking it. Hopefully the lighting's better, the sound's better, and this could potentially be our new home, but we'll figure that out later. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Denise if you want to kick off the policies.
Just as to identify the process that we'll be going through, we will start with discussing any of the policies or regulations that are put forward for purposes of first reading, and then we will move to resolution. That's resolution 1.
Please use the microphone.
Oh, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just the process that we'll be following for tonight's policy meeting. We'll start with resolution 1, which is approval of first reading of revisions to policies, new policies and regulations. And this will be the first time that the board is reviewing these policies. So there'll generally a lot more discussion. Resolution 2 is approval of second reading and adoption of revisions to policies, new policies. We just have one policy that is here for second reading, and that will hopefully move to adoption. And the last is the approval of abolishment of policies and regulations.
We'll kick off with policy 0167.
0167. We talked about this once before, as I'm sure you're all aware, and we obviously did not come to consensus. So what you have is public participation, and then the various iterations, if you will, of what we've done, what we can do, what we may want to do, and it looks like, I don't know. So, anybody want to say anything about the public participation part 1 through 4, or some other part of the policy? Cindy?
I know that last time we met, Jean, you had abstained, or no decision on a format was made because you wanted to request some more information on the costs and the support required. And I was just wondering if we were going to be told anything about the schematics, the wherewithal, the pros, the cons, whatever, so that we can talk about either moving forward with one of these hybrids or having to discuss something else.
Do we have any further information on that, Nick?
So yeah, since that meeting during the summer, the Zoom license with the webinar has been purchased. So we do have that as a district now at this point. We're not operating on the free limited version. So that's not a concern if that's the decision that the board decides to go in. Also, we had to, I know there's talks about utilizing a phone line so people could call in. That's also something that we could arrange if we had to. So it's more just about, at this point, how the board sees fit for how you would like the public to participate. Right now, we're utilizing the Google form.
It is lost in the building.
It is on the first floor in.
Is Rob around?
Rob, would you mind going to look for our board member is lost downstairs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The Google form is something that we're utilizing right now. It's not getting a lot of traction, but it's been open. So it's now, however the board sees fit. If you want to go back to pre-pandemic days, if you want to, stick with the Google form, if you want to utilize telephones, or if you want to use Zoom video. But at this point, I think the floor is yours.
Board members? Cindy, did you?
That's fine, thank you very much.
Julie?
So I had a couple of things that, I think regardless of the determination that we make, that I think need to be added into this policy, which is that we need to have a 30-minute max regardless of how it's, determined. So, and the priority goes to people who are sitting in our audience. So if we spend 30 minutes with people sitting in our audience sharing their information, then unfortunately people who are unable to attend, I don't think that we should be allowed, going forward with that amount of time. It's a 30-minute max. Thank you so much for the people that are available. We do have the Google form available still, but we have to hold to a time frame. Our community is entitled to participate, but most of the information that has been provided, at the very least over the last year, is very repetitive, and I think we need to make sure that that commentary is productive. So I would like to find a way to develop language that states that we are doing a 30-minute max, and it starts with our community who are here. Additionally, I do believe that this is, I know that this is about public participation in board meetings, but I am very passionate about the idea that this is not about us. Not only, we may be volunteers, we are elected officials, and it is expected that we are here, and that we participate in person. If we are unwell, if we have childcare issues, if we have any other issues that are prohibiting us from being here, then we don't get to participate that night. And that's unfortunate, but this is not for us. This is for the community to provide their commentary. I do believe that, Mr. Murphy, you shared that we now have a license for the webinar component of Zoom. Does that give us the opportunity to present it as a webinar and then have a Zoom call-in number?
Yes,
So
I believe so. Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that that be our form of participation, that it be presented as a webinar. It gives us unlimited number of people that have access to it. We don't need to see them via, video. We don't have to spend the time they're there, they can see it live, they call into a Zoom phone call. And I think that right now is the most productive use of our time. So I'd like to suggest that that be a happy medium between utilizing Zoom for our communication with our community, as well as utilizing the phone line.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. Santana.
Yes, good evening. First of all, happy Veterans Day to anyone in the community or anyone who's here who is a veteran or who is related to one. Thank you for your service to our country. I don't think hearing from the community through different channels it's being unproductive. I think I respect my fellow board members' comment, but I respectfully disagree. I don't think hearing from the community, utilizing the available technology so we can be more inclusive, it's unproductive. I think it's very productive. And I think we have to be very careful what kind of signal we are sending. Because just because someone is not here, that doesn't mean they don't care. Because if we go by that, that means we have 4 people.
Point of order.
Excuse me. I did not interrupt.
Mr. Santana, she's making a point of order, which
Okay.
takes precedence. What's your point of order, Julie?
I just want to clarify that that's an interpretation of what I'm saying, and I was very clear that I was not making judgment. I was.
That's not a point of order. Excuse me.
Okay.
That's not a point of
You know
order.
what?
She can wait for her turn like I waited for my turn. That's not a point of order.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay, just let me
Okay.
finish and don't interrupt me and don't call me names.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
here for order.
Could you, everybody direct
You're being very rude.
all comments should be directed to the
I
chair.
apologize, I used.
Okay,
the word
Mr. Banta, can you explain what the point of order is? And please do not call me names because you being
Mr. Santana, please direct your comments to
Okay,
the
can you
chair.
explain what the point of order is so I'm not
I'm
interrupting?
good, I'm not going to interrupt again.
Okay, she's done.
Okay.
So you go right ahead.
Like I said, we have to be careful how we frame this. The way I will frame this is, it's not unproductive to be inclusive. It's not unproductive to be equitable. It's not unproductive to be democratic. Just because we have 4 members of the community here, that doesn't mean the rest do not count. For me, as a board member, everybody counts. And I am for more input, not dividing the community in terms of, if you're not here, I'd rather hear from the people who are here. I don't even think it's legal or ethical to do that. I think it's wrong. We have, in Fairlawn, as you all know, we have a very high concentration of commuters who work in New York and get home. We'll be getting home around this time, 8 p.m. If they want to participate via Zoom, we shouldn't say, well, we have to prioritize the people who are here instead of the people who are connecting. That's divisive. And we should not put neighbors who are in person, and categorize the neighbors who are remotely. I think the suggestions that 5 of us, I believe, suggested were, I believe they are the most appropriate. All citizens are equal regardless if they're here or regardless if they send comments via email. And as a matter of fact, we have comments, we have citizens that have sent comments via email. And those comments should be read. I don't know if in our policy they're supposed to be read, but they have to be read because they're public comments. I don't know if Mr. Comino, the attorney, can clarify that for me. If a member of the public sends a comment and asks, I would like this comment to be read as a public comment, can that comment be considered, can that comment be read? Or can someone just say, I'm not going to read the comment?
Yes, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think it turns on whether or not we're reading, whether it's correspondence. it's an inquiry to administration or otherwise. I would not say that any written communication directed to the board president that requests that it be read has to be read. And
Okay.
I don't think our policy or any bylaw provides that written comments received by the board, well, I don't think there's a policy that defines what that is or that would
So-
require it.
Thank you. So I think we need to clarify this in our policy because we have received emails from the public in the time that I have been on the board, if I recall, yes, and that they have been read. So I think we have to, just to make sure that we are fair, equitable, and just to the community. That if someone takes the time to write an email to the board, that they know if it's gonna be read or not, just for transparency. So again, let's be inclusive, equitable, and democratic. More input is productive use of our time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vladimir.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So I know I have to address the president, so I want to address you. I was not quite clear what Ms. Mahan suggested, just to make my question clear, whether Ms. Mahan advocated for having Zoom with video or just a voice without video, or make it the choice of the person from the public. I wasn't quite clear what was suggested.
Oh,
Voice, no video.
Voice, no video.
yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Now, my opinion, I would support voice or video, so the member of the public can connect via video or connect via voice, whatever they prefer. And secondly, in terms of rules have to be set and they have to be obeyed. Whatever we decide the rules are, whether it's 30 minutes or 45 or whatever, whether we go public first and then Zoom or alternate them public Zoom, whatever we decide the rules are, the rules certainly have to be obeyed. And it is up to us, to the board, to decide what the rules are. And I kind of want to separate it, decide first on the means of communication, voice, video, whatever, and then, as a separate discussion, discuss the rules. I think these are two kind of separate things. Now, having said that, one other note, if we just go to voice only without video, that would certainly be a great step in the right direction.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Can I just jump in from a technical standpoint?
And then Ron.
Thank you. I would prefer, because this is not something that we're going to do overnight. I think we could all agree with that. I mean, we have some technology that we're going to have to work out, also depending on where our location is. But I would prefer it just if we could stick to either it's some type of live Zoom video that we're watching, or some type of voice, whether it be on a telephone or whatever. And I think we should leave that up to the professionals, meaning our technology people, to decide what that format will look like. Whether that we decide, okay, well, it's going to be Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, it's a video, or it's going to be some type of voice, phone call, dial-in system, WebEx, whatever it may be. But I think we should leave that to the professionals. I would ask politely and respectfully. It's either, if we could, some type of video, some type of phone call, dial-in, or nothing, or a Google form. And then...
May I respond?
You want? Go ahead.
I agree. It should definitely be one type of technology. And when I said let the public choose, what I meant is we can have Zoom, and I believe WebEx or whatever, one technology. And I believe at least Zoom has choice. You can connect to a Zoom meeting via video, or in the same meeting, you can call in.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely one technology, I agree.
Okay. Anything else now?
Nikki, anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. Rita?
Hi, can you hear me? I have a question. Is this only for the monthly meetings, or is it the policy meetings, or if we have work sessions? Is this for all meetings at all, or is it just certain meetings that we're discussing?
I think, would apply to any meeting that's, full meeting of the board that's advertised. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, any full meeting of the board that's advertised and is open to public.
Okay, one more thing. When my fellow board members said 30 minutes max, so if somebody, you do 3 minutes for each, and then we ran more people want to speak, does that mean we cut them off and say you can't speak? Is that what my fellow members?
That would be the rule, yes. So let's say 3 people or 10 people at 3 minutes each, and at the end of 30 minutes. So yeah, that would be it. Now, there is a way to get past that if the chairperson, whoever that might be, decides that, you know, there's maybe 2 more people who speak and they'll let them speak. Or if the chairperson doesn't want to do that, then somebody can make a motion to allow another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and if it passes by the board, then the community would get extra time. But the rule would be 30 minutes, and we'd have to do something affirmative to overrule it.
I think that's a bad idea. I think if the members of the public would like to speak, if they're passionate about something, I think everyone should be heard. I don't think we should stifle anybody's speech at any moment. I think that's very not democratic. At least the country I'm from is Ukraine, and we don't feel stifled, and that was one of the reasons my parents immigrated to this country, and this is why my parents came with 4 suitcases to this country, because of freedom of speech and be able to speak against something they don't like. And I think by doing that, I feel like I'm back in Ukraine, and all the progress that my parents worked for and suffered, and all the suffering I went through as a kid by being incredibly poor and not having enough to eat is just being taken away all of a sudden by doing, you after 30 minutes, if you're not one of the 10 people, have a great day. I just feel like this is just going back to a place where I'm from, and I feel very, very uncomfortable telling people that we have to stop letting them talk, especially about their children. So I'm against that. And if we want to do 3 minutes, I'm all for it. But I don't believe that we should tell people, if you're the 11th or 12th or 13th person, have a great day, even though you showed up. We're not going to listen to you. And we have to wait for someone to make a motion. I feel like this is not democratic, and this is not something that, at least what I was brought up by having this country being a democracy and everybody is able to speak their minds. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron?
I have a couple questions. Now, if we did a Zoom, is this just for people to watch, or are they going to be participating like we did when we did pandemic time? What is the Zoom going to look like if we're doing that? Like, I know from teaching WebEx, Teams, Zoom, we've had different ways where they just watch and then they can ask questions. I'm just saying, is it going to be like we have to look at the screen and then somebody, you know, we're going back and forth like we're extending the meeting? I'm just asking that question. I have a couple questions, so I appreciate the time.
That's what everybody's going to decide tonight.
Okay. Second thing I have is, if people want to call in, whichever way we can do it, I have no problem with it. I think we have to set a time limit on the comments, like 3 minutes or something like that. I think it's very important that people stay on topic. I know when we were going through Zoom, we had people not staying on topic. I understand what my fellow board members saying about the 30 minutes, and I would be willing to listen to maybe going a little farther, but I think at some point you need to set a time limit, because you could be here till midnight, and I don't think that's fair to us. And you can take that any way you want, but I just don't think it's fair to us. And we might not see that, you know, one meeting might not have as much participation as another. I do believe, though, people do have a way to working or whatever to communicate with the board. They can send emails to the board, as we do get them every day, and they can send them to the administration. So I don't think people are limited to just that night of a meeting. But again, my thing is I don't have a problem with calling or some type of, but I need parameters and I need things, and I don't want to see that, again, as Mr. Icken said, you set rules, you got to stick to the rules. Not that every meeting, like, let's send more motions. We said we're going to stick to 45 minutes. Next meeting, let's go to an hour. Next meeting, we go to an hour. You can't do that. And there's no sense in having rules or bylaws. So that's just, I'm saying how I feel. but I'm not against it. You know, listen, everybody's busy. You know, we all know that, and if something is very important to them, whether they're working or not, they're going to get their message across to the administration and to the board because they want to. So sometimes they don't even have to speak. They can email the board members, which the president would answer, and take it. So they have multiple ways of communicating with the Board of Education and administration. They're not limited just to a meeting once a month or 2-3 times a month. So I think we all need to take that into consideration. And if anybody thinks that they're not taking up on the resources that they have, that's just personally how I feel. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Mike and then Mark.
All right, I want to piggyback a tiny bit on what Ron just said, if I could. But I want to start by saying we have to remember what the purpose is of a Board of Education meeting, and that's to do the business of the board. And every training I've been to by attorneys, by New Jersey School Boards Association, best practices by New Jersey School Boards Association, tells us that we're here to do the business of the board. We're elected to represent the public, and I'm all for public input, but it does have to stay on point, and most of the questions that the public is going to have is actually best answered by the administration to begin with, because the administration, we can't act until the administration acts, and if there's not an answer to the administration, if they want to go further than the administration, if they're not getting the right answer, then it would be our job to come in. I still like 4, but I realize that most of my board members, colleagues don't. The live stream, in person, and the written questions. I think if we're going to do Zoom, then to me we wouldn't have the live stream. It would be Zoom. You know, we wouldn't have both Zoom and a live stream, and because that would be a nightmare, first of all, for our technology people, and it wouldn't make sense to me. I do think we need to limit the time for public comment because, again, we're here to do the business of the board, and as I said last month, there's a certain amount, we're doing a disservice to different parts of the community when we go on, and when our meetings last till 10, 11 o'clock, we're doing a disservice to the people that have families and have things to do, and they tune out. After an hour or so, you tune out. We know that. We know that in the education field. We know that. People will tune out. So I think there does need to be a limit, and I like the 30-minute limit, and I like the 3-minute duration limit, and then if there's more time, then you go back. I differ with one of my colleagues as far as the public, the people at home not having a chance. I think they should have a chance to participate no matter what. I don't want to stifle anybody. So I would agree, you know, if we're going to go with Zoom, then I would not want to live stream anymore. I would just want to do Zoom, and I would not want the public. I don't think there's an easy way for a video for the public to be seen. It would just be heard to me. Like I wouldn't necessarily need to see the person that's asking the question, because I think that it's just, again, we don't want to make technological nightmares for our technology staff, and it's just there's no reason for it. So, but again, I think the public participation, the public being able to talk to us and communicate with us is the most important thing, and give their ideas. Okay, but when it comes down to it, we were elected to make the tough decisions for the board.
Thank you, Mike. Mark?
Yes, thank you. In response to what Michael just said about representing the public, in response to what Michael just said about representing the Republic, I really feel that in order to represent the public properly, we need to hear what the public is saying. And we don't necessarily hear what the public is saying when we're walking through the streets of Fairlawn. But we do hear about them when they do call in or they do attend meetings. And that's most important, not to limit to 30 minutes. However, if my fellow colleagues do consider limiting it, I want to know from somebody here tonight, how do you determine, what is the procedure that is going to be used if you have 50, 60 people in the audience? How are you going to know when to cut them off? Are we only going to give 10 people the opportunity? Are we going to ask how many want to speak? Are we going to limit it to 2 minutes? How is that procedure going to be determined? And I think it needs to be determined before we make the decision of what we're going to do, not after. Because truthfully, I don't think it's right that we cut people off or don't allow them to speak if they've taken the time to either be on Zoom or be on any other media or to come to the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
This is why it's difficult and dangerous, because nobody wants to silence the public. We're a district that prides itself on communication and transparency, and this is difficult, and this is something that came of light during the pandemic, and it was a way to still hold your board meetings and have the public involved while we were in the middle of a global pandemic. You're seeing many districts going back to live meetings and going away from Zoom board meetings. Some districts are still utilizing it because they may still be out of, one district is still utilizing it because they were flooded out. Some are, just doing phone right now at this point and transitioning back to live meetings in public. That's a very hard question to answer. It's a good point, and I think this is why, we discuss it often. To Mr. Rosenberg's point, and I'm not looking to sway anybody either way, but this is healthy dialogue and the purpose of the policy meeting. This is a board meeting held in public, and we hear that at every single training we have. Not a board meeting with the public. However, the public has an opportunity to participate, and we welcome that by all means. And we've tried it in different formats, and it's dicey to where do you cut it off. I believe one of the recommendations, and I know it was just thrown out there, it wasn't that it was a recommendation for me to vote on, but if you go one person public, one person Zoom, one person public, one person Zoom, would be probably a nightmare administratively for us. We would be like running back and forth trying to see, we'd probably be losing time, and the public would probably be losing opportunities to speak. But that's what makes this really difficult, because we are here to do our business in the public, but where do you cap it? I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 people here now. 6 people, if they all spoke once, if they all spoke for 3 minutes, which I doubt they would, but give them benefit of the doubt, 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes for the people that are on Zoom. And let's be honest, it's usually not the public that's doing all the speaking, it's usually us. We're usually speaking longer than the public if you go back and watch our meetings. So, I think if you do decide that, it's going to be 30 minutes or 40 minutes, or you're going to extend it, there's going to have to be a cutoff, or it would never stop. But it is very tricky, because I don't think there's an easy answer. And I think that's why there's a lot of recommendations in a lot of districts moving back to pre-pandemic board meetings in person.
But do you recommend that the rules be established before we vote on how it's going to be done if it gets passed that way?
I think that's a trick question. No, I think, the reason why I'm hesitating was because that's what we originally had said from, I believe Mr. Rickens said we should probably decide which format we're going to use first and then come up with the rules. But as this dialogue is going on right now, it almost feels like, no, you may need to figure out the other piece first and then come back to that. Because I think you really need to decide, are we sticking with a traditional board meeting as we did pre-pandemic, or are we not? And I think that's something that you may have to, thumbs up or thumbs down now, and then debating on, and then after that, maybe what type of format, and then how much time. But I think you're trying to answer so many questions at the same time in your dialogue that it's making it difficult and convoluted. So that was the original question, but this definitely took a life of its own, and by no surprise, and we knew this was going to be probably the most talked about policy on here. But I think you need to have that conversation. Do you want pre-pandemic board meetings, or do you want pandemic board meetings? And if you have, once you figure that out, then I think you have to get to the next point of minutes and rules and format. Just my humble opinion.
Mark,
I'm done.
no, but I just want to answer your question. There is a public participation policy, and that's the way we do it. However, any board can at any time, override its own policy for whatever the situation might be. So, and maybe we should put that in here so that it's clear that the presiding officer can extend the time if it's deemed to be necessary. And we've done that plenty of times. We did it with soft borders, we did it with a referendum, we did it every time there's a huge meeting. It always took an hour and a half, 2 hours. So we've done it in the past. It's not like it's the 30 minutes. Sorry, I know you're in the middle of the sentence, but stop. So you can extend it. Maybe we should put that in here to make everybody feel comfortable that that's how we're going to do it. That's how any policy or any board meeting is run. Listen, I run meetings, but at any time, and it's happened plenty of times, a board member can make a motion to overrule my ruling. So that's fine. We can do it this way too. Luke, you want to say something else?
Thank you, Gene. Look, I am also not in favor of limiting the public portion to 30 minutes. I agree with Ms. Pavlovic, it's a bad idea, and I'm going to tell you why. If we limit it to 30 minutes, let's say every member of the public has 3 minutes to speak. Only 10 members of the public will be allowed to speak under that 30 minutes. If we have 5 minutes for them to speak, only 6 members of the public. Now, our population is growing. Okay? According to the U.S. Census latest estimate that I have seen, we are at 34,000 people. And we are a government body. So if we were a private institution limiting speech, okay, but it's not a good idea. And, like my fellow board member stated, those of us who come from other countries who were born overseas, we came to America because of our democracy and freedom, especially the open government that we have, that we are allowed to dissent and tell our elected officials how we feel. So limiting the public portion to 30 minutes will be undemocratic, and I think it's authoritarian to do that, because if the process have worked for so long, allowing the public to speak, why are we going to limit them to the point that only 6 people will be able to speak for 5 minutes? So I think it's wrong that we are even talking about this. I think this is my interpretation of it. We are literally micromanaging speech. And I think we need to be open. Yes, people need to stay on topic. However, that is open to interpretation. When it comes, well, let me rephrase that. When there are comments on agenda items, yes. However, when there are comments on anything else, free speech said they have freedom of speech. So if we don't hold the Constitution, we're violating the Constitution, and that's a big problem. So listening to, we were elected to listen to the community, and the community parents, the educators, or members of the public, they are part of our stakeholders. And like Mr. Spindell stated, it's our business to listen to the community. And when we restrict or limit the speech of the public, we send a chilling message down the spine of every member of this community. And many of our fellow Americans sacrifice a lot for that freedom of speech. So yes, of course, we have to use common sense, but this is not the time to cut down the amount of people that would be able to speak, especially when we have seen, because of the pandemic, a higher amount of public participation, and we should take advantage of the new realities in which we can utilize technology to have more input.
And Mr.
And more
Santana,
input.
Mr. Santana, in 4 minutes.
Okay.
There's a couple of people want to speak, and
No
I
problem.
hear from the public.
More input, more feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy, then Vlad.
Are we timing ourselves here?
I am, yes.
Oh, I thought we were on policy.
I just want to say that in the tenure that I've been on the board, which is going into my 15th year, I have never, ever seen a resident of our community walk out of a meeting and say they were not allowed to speak. I think we have to give credit to the person that we elect as our president, to see what the topic is, to look around the room, to survey the room, to even might say how many people want to speak. And take it from there. To say that we're shutting down and being unconstitutional, there's not a person here that can say they've walked out of a board meeting that haven't been allowed to speak. It's never happened, and I don't think it ever will. But you do have to have some kind of parameters, and I think what Jean had suggested about putting a phrase in there, I mean, you've got to give credence to the board president to see what is going on. And to just say, well, I'm sorry, there's 10 people here, we have 30 minutes, so only 2 of you, so give it your best shot. That's ridiculous. And I don't think that it would be done. Putting something in, but I definitely think we have to have some kind of parameters that can be given leeway when the opportunity presents itself. I can remember sitting at the Source Border meetings and seeing the line of people just trail all the way around the decaf, and every single one of those people got to speak.
Thank you. Vlad?
I think we all spoke, so I think we all kind of expressed our opinion about the matter. So I would like to make a motion at this time.
No, we're not done speaking. We'll go on. Mike still wants to speak. Rita wants to speak. I'm going to talk to the public. So we're not ready to...
Oh, okay, then we'll postpone my motion. No.
Okay. No, we'll get back. We'll get back to that. Okay. Mike?
All right, I want to ask, can I ask a question to the attorney, please?
Sure.
Is there anything that we've spoken of tonight that would go against the Constitution of the United States and would, and is undemocratic in your opinion?
I'm not concerned with any of the proposals as violating any law.
Thank you.
I was referring to the stay on topic comment.
As far as, I don't think anywhere it's going to say stay on topic. And I don't think you could write that into policy. I don't think we would write that into policy. We could suggest it, but I agree with Cindy when she says that, I've never seen someone shut out of a meeting. And I think what we tend to do at these meetings lately, the past year or so, what we tend to do at these meetings is we make it harder than it has to be. And we're not listening to a good segment of the public that is saying that our meeting, we just got an email last week from a resident saying that we need to stop going back and forth with each other. We need to keep the meetings under control. We need to do our jobs, basically, and let the administration do their job and us do our jobs. So I am listening to the public. I am listening to the public. I think we need to really consider that if it's 30, 45 minutes, I don't care. I think once you get over an hour of public comment, no one's listening anymore. No one's listening anymore. Because it's just, and I'm going to just repeat one other thing that I said. I'm coming at it by what has been told to us as best practice, because a lot of people use best practice, there's a lot of words going on here. Equity, best practice, and I think maybe we're all using it when it suits us. Best practice from the professionals, the New Jersey School Boards Association. Our attorney, our past attorney, our school board rep, is that there is some kind of limitation on the amount of time, and that it is a time for public comment, and that the public is allowed, who said it so elegantly, that said it perfectly, that it isn't, that it's the public, I think it was Nick actually.
A Board of Education meeting in public is a meeting of the Board of Education the public can see.
Right.
It's not a meeting for the public or of the public.
So, yeah, and there's so many different modes for the public to communicate with us. But so I think however we do it, whether we do it, I mean, if we take off the live stream and only do Zoom, are we hurting some of the public being able to get in? I think we might be. So I think we have to think about that too. That maybe Zoom isn't the right platform. Maybe the right platform is live streaming and a phone-in. And I believe that's what the council is doing right now, but the council gets very few phone-ins. They do get messages. They do get written questions, and I've heard written questions being read off a lot, but the call-in hasn't been that much. So I think we really have to figure that piece out, and which piece is the best for
I think you got
us
it
and our
right.
technology. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Read a last word from the board, and I'm going to go to the public.
What is our current policy now regarding public speaking? Is it 30 minutes?
All right. Number 2, in the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement by participant to 3 minutes duration. So yeah, that's 3.
So, but it's not 30 minutes. It's after 30 minutes, you can limit it to 30
No.
minutes.
It's 30 minutes.
But you have it right in front of you. It's, the first one was the draft one that
Like
you
binder?
voted on, and then the one with all the red highlighting, the next policy is the actual current one.
But it says the presiding may limit each statement by 3 minutes, but it doesn't say that after 3 minutes, 30 minutes total. After 30
In the
minutes.
event, I'll read it, and everybody can just, figure out what it means to them. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement by participant 3 minutes duration. So yeah, I can see where you would say that, but we've been doing it at 30 minutes as long as I can remember.
Okay.
So,
My second question is, we say that if the presiding officer, if it's more than 30 minutes, we're going to let the people speak. Then why make a why make a rule if we're gonna break it anyways to make a motion? Why do that? Why not just let anybody speak and have 3 minutes each, as many people as want? Because as you said, you would never let anyone not be able to speak if they want to speak. So then what's the point of arguing about the 30 minutes if you're still going to allow that to happen? I'm just not understanding the logic behind that. Because as one of my fellow board members said, we will not let anybody not be able to speak at a meeting, shut anybody out. Okay. The board president will allow people to speak as if they want to. Okay. We can make a motion. Okay. We're still going to, that means we will break the rule. Then why make the rule?
So we should have no rule.
No, we should have a rule where 3 minutes and allow as many people as they want to speak, and therefore we don't have to say, let's make a rule that we will break the rule to make a motion so that we can, I just feel like if I want to make a rule, I'm going to stick to it, or I'm not going to make that rule, because at least to me that doesn't look, at least maybe I don't understand the logic behind it. And another thing I don't understand is, why do we say Zoom? Why don't we just say some kind of platform where they can do it? Because I feel like we shouldn't tie our policy to a particular company.
I agree.
So is there a way we can fix that in the policy somehow?
You say Zoom or equivalent or something like that.
I think we should just call it a video platform or
Yes,
something.
yes.
I don't think, because I mean, after this year, we pay a lot of money for Zoom. A lot of money. And after this year, hopefully, knock on wood, the pandemic moves in the right direction, and, we don't have to pay the license for Zoom anymore if we go back to a traditional school day. So we may be using a different platform. That's why I said before, I want to, halt us from saying it should either be video, phone call, or nothing. And I think that's how the policy should be written. And then, so no, I agree with this thing.
Okay, so somehow when we vote for it, is there a way we can identify how?
I think, just to answer you, what I was thinking, and I don't know what the rest of the board wants to do, but there's a question of how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So I think we take each particular point that we're talking about. Is it going to be live or YouTube? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be video or something else? Is it going to be 3 minutes per person, total of 30? I think we break it down that way. We could probably make a policy, but if we just, like Vlad makes a motion and then Ron wants to change the motion, I think we do it one thing at a time. We can do it that way. But that's all right with the board. But I think otherwise, we'll be here all night just trying to word the policy so everybody finds it acceptable. You still have time if you want.
No, thank you.
Can I comment?
Yeah, sure. John, go ahead. And then I'll get to Julie and Ron.
So, I respect the comments about speech and free speech. You folks have heard me say before, speech is sacred, and it's recognized. And I will echo comments that I have not seen, and I'm the new kid on the block. But I have not seen in the time I've been here any suppression of speech at all, none. Speech under the Open Public Meetings Act is not defined. Doesn't say it's unlimited, doesn't say it's 5 minutes, doesn't say it's an hour. It simply says that the public must be given an opportunity to be heard at public meetings. And then public meetings are defined. If there wasn't a quorum here tonight and this is a committee, the public wouldn't be permitted in the room. This is Board of the Whole tonight because we've got quorum, the board can take action, the public has a right to be heard. That doesn't mean that the public has a right, if there were 500 people here, to be heard until 2 a.m. It's to the discretion of the body. So how that speech, just like association, just like other First Amendment rights, is regulated is up to all of you as elected officials. Michael was speaking to this. This is my 4th board meeting in 4 nights. The last 3 nights and the weeks before, I don't think there's a single district we represent that does not impose certain boundaries around speech in order to guide you. Within that, there is the ability, as your president articulated, if at any time it doesn't work, motion, second, there can be a relaxation. You can take an agenda out of order. You can add an opportunity for public comment if something comes up and the public wants to be heard again during it. You can do all those things. But to the point of, we don't want any recommendation, we don't want any, I don't want to call it limit, but bylaws and policy exist to provide structure for all, so that there's a fair understanding of the community and a fair understanding of the assembly. And I think that's what Michael's heard before, others of you have heard before, for me, from others from school boards, et cetera. And that's why we look at that as best practice, not statutes, not regulation. Because again, ALPA simply says, public's here, we recognize they've got this sacred right, but it's regulated. And it's also regulated by content, which we're not going to get into. But I want to make this comments. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you, John. Julie?
Anyone who did their due diligence and research surrounding areas and state of New Jersey Board of Education will know that on average, 99% of school boards do hold a public comment limit to 30 to 40 minutes. That being said, if the community is unaware at any point, you can email any member of the board, any administrator, any question, any comment, any concern you have. This is called public comments. On average, we have at least 3 to 4 people who are commenting that ask questions. Questions do not have to be answered. So best practice would be to email our administration or our Board of Ed so that your questions can be answered in a timely manner. This is not the only way for us to communicate with our administration and our board, and I do think it would behoove us to consider this time frame so that we have clearly delineated expectations for ourselves and for our community.
Thank you, Julie. All right, Ron?
Yeah, just a point of information. We've had big meetings here, and I was discussing with fellow board member Mr. Spindell. In the 15, 16 years I've been involved in the board, on average, we average maybe 10, 12 people most of the time at our meeting. They all get to speak. It's usually when it's on a big topic, soft orders, the referendum. And I ran the soft orders meeting as the Buildings and Grounds chairman, and we had over 250 people there, and I think that night we had over 60 people speak. And the thing is, as our attorney said, John said, you have bylaws because they give, and policies to give you structure. At any time, according to Robert's rules, the presiding officer can, with a motion, override that. So if something came up here and 40 people, 500 people showed up on topic, I don't think any president is going to shut them down. We understand that. But again, as I stated, and again, people, I love when people take things out of topic, out of context. During Zoom, we did have people that were just going on and on, not talking about what they were there for. But I don't think we would ever do that, as Cindy stated. I would never want to do that because I want to hear the public. But again, everybody's thinking that in another 2, 3 months, whatever, that this place is going to be packed. If it is, I'd be the first person to stand up and say thank you. But a lot of people in this community trust the 9 of us that they voted for to represent them. And they will talk to you in different forums. They will talk to the administration through email or whatever. They can always call up our superintendent personally. So we're never shutting them down, but again, you need to have some structure because, as I said, if you think you're gonna be here for 2 o'clock every board meeting or every open public board meeting forum, and you think people are gonna pay attention, it's not gonna happen. It's just not. So I just wanted you to understand that we've had some big meetings in this community, and we listened to every person, allowed every person to speak, even multiple times. They got to speak that night. So again, you need to have parameters to guide a meeting. Otherwise, it's chaos. You're never going to have it. And I've run different meetings in different organizations. Okay? And like I said, people can talk about whatever they want. But when people start going way off and they're just not on it, I don't think that's fair to the public. I don't think it's fair to the board. I don't think it's fair to the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Mr. Gardner,
No, everybody's spoken, but
there was an error on the policy. Can I point that out?
there's an error on the policy. What's the error in the policy?
This is a second reading, right?
No.
It's the first reading. It was first reading.
It might be a first reading if we can work out the language.
We actually were talking about that, if you don't mind. We pretty much said we were coming back to making this like a draft first reading again, just because it was so long ago and so much has happened from then. I mean, technically, we probably could say this is a fourth reading at this point, because we've talked about it so many times. But Denise and I, when we were preparing this for the board, we brought this back to a first reading because we knew that so much time has passed by, and we thought like since then it would be a good idea.
I understand. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the board agreed the last time we discussed this, 5-minute duration for the public.
No.
Not 3 minutes. 5 minutes we agreed.
No. We did agree to 5 minutes, but not for this. That's if we have to go back to remote meetings.
Yes.
That's
If there was like another pandemic and we were forced to just do all remote meetings.
I'm going to make a motion to
Mr.
make
Santana,
5 minutes.
Mr. Santana, I still have to hear from the public, all right? So, and we hear from them, and then we can discuss amongst ourselves how we're gonna do this. Thank you. Any member of the public want to comment on policy 1167, public participation in board meetings? Craig, just state your name and town you live in, please, for the record.
Sure. Craig Miller, 5 Armco Terrace. I do go to a lot of meetings, council in here, and here I have no kids in school, so you could have my 3 minutes. The problem with emails to the board and being read here is there's no time limit set. Unless somebody's watching the clock as it's being read, and 3 minutes is up, you're done reading off an email, because an email can go 5 minutes. Perhaps there should be one email to everybody here if the public wants to comment. Because going on your site to try to find the emails to the Board of Education, I get the members, but I don't get administration, I don't get the superintendent. So if everybody wants to be heard from the regular public meeting.
Craig, let me just tell you, the superintendent, when you click on the board member's email, the superintendent gets it too, just for future information.
I didn't see in the listing.
No, I know, I wanted to clear that up, that he does get it. Go ahead.
I do agree to limit to at least 3 minutes. I don't like the block of 30 minutes and that's it. I think you do yourself, I know nobody wants to be here until 1 a.m. I don't want to be here until 1 a.m. I'm sure the staff here doesn't want to be here either. I don't know if it's part of the public policy meeting, but you guys haven't had a work session, God knows how long. And it's like you're trying to cram a work session into a regular meeting and we'll know everything else. Perhaps getting back to work sessions will cut the amount of time the public speaks. I don't know what the answer is. I don't like Zoom at all or anything video. I don't even like YouTube. Because to sit in a chair to listen for a half hour, you lose me. But I do enjoy coming here, 3 minutes, and I know you can have 3 minutes and 50 people speak on the same subject and say the same thing over and over again, tunes me out. But I would not limit to a block. I would just keep it and then use your discretion as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any other members of the public?
Christine Weinstein, Burbank Street. I think it's important that we should, I heard someone say that there are a lot of outlets and ways to communicate with you guys and ask questions and such that already exist that I think a lot of people don't know about. And I think it's important to educate the public on all of the ways that we can communicate with you, whether it's through email, whether it's phone calls, where this information is. I think it would be really helpful if you did either a presentation that you could post on the website or some kind of resource that everyone has a way of knowing all of the multiple ways to get in touch with you guys. Okay, I'm the public, I know that if I can't be here, I can live stream, and that's usually what I do. And I walk around my house with my headphones on, and I listen, and I watch, and I get all the information I need, and I know if I have a question, I send an email. That's just the way that it is. I don't like Zoom. I don't think Zoom is going to be great. I'm not against public participation, but it's understood that if I can't be here, then I know I'm not going to ask the questions in person. I have a child, special needs child at home. I can't always leave him at home. So if I can't be here, I know I live stream and I listen. I love the live stream. I think it was working very well. But I think it's important to let everybody know how to communicate what we have in place right now so that people are aware of all of those things. So then they can maybe utilize them better. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else from the public?
Joe Moldovsky, Blue Hill Ave. I think as Christine was just saying, something is that the public comments have never been stifled here. And it's making sure that all the avenues that are possible are open for public to make the comments. I think a lot of focus right now is on that block of time when it should be on figuring out, making sure that the correct avenues are open. Seeing, is it going to be the live stream and is it going to be the emailing? As the attorney said, it's structure, and every board needs structure, and this board, I believe our board, really needs structure sometimes, just because it is unruly at times. So, in my experience, I've never seen public participation stifled at these meetings. Everybody that wants to speak has spoken. So I'd really encourage just keeping those avenues open, making sure that the most avenues are open for public participation, and making it aware for the public. So, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Amanda Pasarkar, 0-42, Hamlin 4. I am looking at this public participation in board meeting 0167 policy. I have reviewed this policy for several other districts as well. The policy is identical except the point 2, where we are very generous, providing 3 minutes time for public to speak, which is a great limit. We want to structure the meeting, but limiting meeting public participation 30 minutes I haven't seen in any district, whatever I have looked. The due diligence I did for about this policy, I have not seen that one. So I would definitely want the structured meeting about 3 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on the number of audience in the crowd. But I would not like to have 30 minutes limit for public to participate. Yes, I agree, we all have our things to do. Public also needs to go home. We have worked, children and family. We can come back if the meeting is extended. The topics can be really crucial for public to speak. We can extend that meeting or we can reconvene that meeting. So I would say that we can limit the public speaking for 3 minutes, but not limiting for 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what I think we're going to do now is let's take this piece by piece. Is there anyone here that has any thought about no longer live streaming the meeting? Would like to get rid of that? We're going to keep that. Everybody's in favor of keeping that? Right? Okay. All right, so we're going to continue to live stream the meetings. Next thing would be Zoom video. Now, Nick, what you're saying is you'd like to find out exactly what the technological issues would be of video versus audio calling.
No, I'd like you to decide whether or not it's going to be the way it is now, video or calling. We'll figure out the rest of the pieces.
Okay.
On whether or not it's Zoom, Google, or Microsoft Teams, or whatever you want to say. I think you have to decide.
Some video component or just a call in?
The way Google form, the way it's working now, as we continue Google form, a call-in or a video.
Okay. All right. How many people, after a little discussion, would like to have some type of a video presence by the public, which when they could then, contact us through the video? How many people would like that? 4 videos. How many people would like to see just some type of call-in presence?
Wait, is that in lieu of the video?
In lieu of the video.
Instead of getting
The video lost, so now how many people want to do call-in? Okay, so we're going to have a call-in component that Nick will work with on the, with the technical people. Okay. All right, so this came up a couple, I'm not sure where we landed on it. Do we give preference in time to the people, not in time, but preference in who speaks first, to the people that are here? How many people want to give preference to the people that showed up and they get to speak first, and then the people who are calling in would be, the second batch? How many people want to do that? Okay. So, and preference to the people, or power to the people. Next thing, time limit for individual speakers. We've heard 3 minutes, we've heard 5 minutes. How many people want to do 3 minutes? What? Okay, wait, hold on.
Can we just raise a hand to have a limit? Yes, no limit, and then what limit is?
Well, hold on.
Yeah, right now we don't have a limit unless the public portion may exceed 30 minutes.
Right, so we're going to add that. I want to see if people want to add that so that it's clear that it's 3 minutes per person. How many people want to limit to 3 minutes per person? Okay. Now, here's where we're going to get
What
dicey.
about the 5-minute option? Can we vote on 5 minutes?
We just voted on 3 and it passed like 7-2, 8-1. How many people would like to put some type of a total time limit on public participation? Now, I want to make clear that when we're talking about public participation in a public meeting, you have 2 different times that public can speak. So you could speak for 3 minutes on agenda items, and then later on, when we do other business, you can speak 3 minutes again. So I just want to make that clear. Same thing with the time limit. Do we want to put a time limit? We can discuss what the time limit is. Do we put a time limit on public speaking, either for agenda or other business? How many people want to see an actual time limit? Okay, 1, 2, 6. Now it's 1, 2, 5. Okay, so there's going to be a time limit. Now, I'm going to propose 30-minute time limit. How many people would like to see, and that's, again, it could be twice if it's a public meeting. How many people want 30-minute time limit total, with obviously presiding officer having some leeway to extend it, or if the presiding officer does not wish to extend it, then a motion could be made to extend it for 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. How many people want to see 30 minutes with that caveat? Okay, 30 minutes. Okay, let's bump it up. 45 minutes with that caveat. Okay. 60 minutes. Okay, well, this is not going. So, we want a limit, but we don't know what it is. Somebody throw out a number then. We got 30, 45, and 60.
I'll go to 60.
I'll go to 6. I'll go to 60.
Okay, 60.
Why do we have to limit people?
Because we just voted on it, and now it's, all right, 60 minutes. Who said 60? That's one. Okay. And again, there's not a lot of meetings where you have that much time for comments. I mean, last week we had a public meeting, and I think 5 people spoke for 3 minutes, 15 minutes. That was it. And generally, unless it's a big item, like I said, referenda or something like that, you don't get that many.
So is that 60 twice or 60 total?
It's 60 twice for a public meeting. It won't happen.
Gene?
Yes.
I think the biggest factor is that we really, all of us, do not keep on top, and the public as well. And I think there's a lot of wasted time on that. Do we have somebody here who is specifically listening and making that decision whether or not they are on topic or not?
Well, if it's other business, there is no on topic. You can.
Correct, no, but I'm talking about
Oh, but
on the agenda.
On the agenda, I try to keep people in line,
But
but
who is responsible for
the
that?
president. the president.
Okay.
So that you just, like I said, other business you can talk about,
Right.
there's a crack in the sidewalk in front of Horace, if you want. All right. Am I missing anything? Is there anything left out of this policy that anybody, that we didn't discuss?
I'd like to add something.
Go ahead.
Would the board be in favor of allowing, I know some, I can't recall any district, but some districts do have this, as a courtesy to the, I know the presiding officer can do this, but as a courtesy to the public, right? Is there any way that we can allow the public portion to go first? Like, do we have sometimes we have, how sometimes we have some residents that they want to come, speak, and leave. And
So
then
you-
if the meeting,
I think I know what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
if, for those people that don't want to sit through the whole meeting, they just want to give their comment and leave and put their children to bed, and, is there any way that we can allow in the order of the agenda that we have the public portion first? So those people who want to speak and leave, so we can be respectful of their time. Will the board be in favor of that?
Okay, so let's just want to make sure that I understand it. So right now, the way we do it is, before we do board comments in the agenda, we take public comments in the agenda. Then we do the board comments in the agenda, then we do the agenda, then we go to other business. So what you'd like to do is public comments on the agenda, public comments, other business, and then the board votes and does its business voting. And it's its own other business portion. Okay. All right, everybody understand what the suggestion was? Yeah.
Do you mind?
Julie, let John make a suggestion.
Thank you. If we're gonna do that, and I understand the thinking, and I've always thought, actually, it's kind of odd that public comment is split in half. It's a common practice. And it obviously, the first comment as to agenda items happens first, so that the public, because again, this is a meeting of the board in public, so that you all, when you vote, have the benefit of their comments. If you're gonna do that, my suggestion would be that you collapse both. We're just providing one opportunity for comment then. Because APMA does not say twice. It doesn't say a period of time for agenda items and a period of time for anything else you want to be heard on. So there would be just one time for public comment. That would be my suggestion. Not that it would be, and maybe that's what you're suggesting.
I think that is what you suggested.
Yes, but
Yes, but I wouldn't want to stifle, the spirit of my comment was, if we have a mom or dad that comes here and wants to talk about a topic, if it's on the agenda or if it's not on the agenda, that they don't sit through a 3-hour meeting and then they can't put the kids to bed on time. You know what I'm saying? I think I have heard something like that from a lot of people.
All public comment then happens at one time at the front.
Total of 1 hour.
Correct. One opportunity for comment with, again, the ability to, if you got 100 people standing in a line, to expand it.
Does somebody want to comment on Mr. Santana's suggestion? I saw Julie's hand. Julie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
No, Julie was first.
No,
Okay. So Julie, read them.
So I actually wouldn't be opposed to that, but I would only agree to it should it be the 60-minute limit. However, I'm going to go back to what Ms. Weinstein had shared during her public comment, which was that there are other avenues to share that information, and maybe we as a district need to do a better job of sharing those avenues for communication with our community, so they know that missing their child's bedtime, or missing their favorite TV show, or missing their downtime after a long day of work, coming here is not the only way to communicate with us as a board and our administration. So I wouldn't be opposed to it going to one, but then it still needs to be the 60 minutes. Otherwise, there are multitudes of ways to communicate with us as a board and our administration.
Thank you. Rita?
I'm confused, so it will be only 3 minutes total, and that's it? For the person per meeting, and that's it, instead of 6? So we're cutting it in half the way it's
It would be
proposed.
60 minutes, 3 minutes per person, but if we don't use the 60 minutes, people can come back and speak a second time.
Actually talk 4
It's
times.
4 times.
You actually talk 4 times.
Yeah, they talk 4 times, okay. So,
Okay. I don't know, when I went to board meetings, I'm a little confused, but I went to board meetings, I thought it would be helpful if the board first speaks on the agenda and the public speaks second, because sometimes things are brought up where the public is not aware of until, and it was already too late to speak about those things before you vote. So when I went to board meetings, and I did that before I became a board member for 2 years, I thought it would be more helpful for the board to first talk about the agenda items and then the public talk about the agenda items. Because sometimes things are brought up by the board members that the public do not know about, and then by the time it was too late to speak. So I would like that idea. And let the public at the end speak. I don't really like the idea of cutting it by half.
Can I clarify what I meant? I think there's a misunderstanding.
yeah, go ahead. I don't want to
Okay.
misquote you.
I never stated that I wanted to cut in half. What I said was, for those members of the public that came here to share their opinion on a topic, that they're not forced to stay for 3 hours or whatever, how long the meeting lasts. Allow the public portion to go right away and let them speak. And if they want to stay, they're more than welcome. If they want to leave and put the children to bed, also. That's it. And what the board president said, if they speak and, nobody else wants to speak, there's an hour limit, they can go again.
That's right. If we do it this way, if we do it the way Mr. Santana suggested, we'd be having public comments, in theory, from 7:30 to 9:30. The board doesn't say a word, we just sit here and listen for 2 hours to an hour on agenda and an hour on other business. If we do it, right, but not everybody wants to do that.
1 hour.
1 hour.
1 hour. I never.
1 hour, not
1
2.
hour.
1 hour.
No, Rita, you're right. We said 2 hours, 1 hour for part one, 1 hour for part two. But now we're gonna squeeze it all into the beginning of the meeting, or we're talking about squeezing it all into the beginning of the meeting.
But is there a way we can do that, the beginning of the meeting where we have non-agenda items and the board talks, and then the board talks about agenda items, and then we have the agenda items for the public to speak, so that it breaks it up, non-agenda, and then
That's a good idea.
so that it would break it up and it's not all in one shot. 'Cause, that
Well,
makes-
but then the board's not speaking, then the public's not speaking first.
But I think it would be better for the public to speak about non-agenda.
Guys, I can hear you over here.
If the public can speak about non-agenda items first, as Mr. Santana said, then the board members talk about agenda items, and then the public speaks about the agenda.
No, then we'd have to vote on the agenda items, and then then the people would be waiting again, which is exactly the opposite of what.
But before we vote, that people, the public can talk
No,
about it,
no.
and then we vote.
Well, if the board wants to do that, what you're suggesting is agenda items talked about by the public.
No, non-agenda items.
Non-agenda items by the public. Then what?
Board members talk about agenda items.
Right.
Public speak about agenda items before we vote, because they will be the final talk about what we discussed.
Okay.
So that whatever is brought up sometimes by board members, at least things were brought up when I was a non-board member, and it was too late and I couldn't say anything, because I didn't understand. So I think that would be more helpful.
Mr. Banta, I withdraw the suggestion. There's no board support for this.
Okay. John, Nick, you want to weigh in on this? Anything you want to say?
On,
On the way, I'm not sure where we are now, actually.
so I think we have direction and consensus of the board in how to amend this policy. I heard live stream stays, audio, public participation is going to be added. The order is going to be in-person comment first, 3-minute time limit per person, 60 minutes total to each of the 2 public comment sections. That's what I heard.
Can you clarify that last page?
60 time limits. Each speaker, 3 minutes, 60 minutes total for each, the first public comment on agenda items and the second non-agenda.
Okay.
That was the consensus.
And that doesn't, we're not discussing Rita's suggestion of swapping?
Does anybody, all right, everybody understood what Rita was saying, right? What her idea was?
I thought, if I can,
Go
I
ahead.
thought those comments came from Wilkins' comment,
She's
which
not
he then withdrew.
Okay.
So we have consensus now on this policy, and I
I
think
thought you
we
were
can,
making your own suggestion.
we can,
I just think if you swap, this is my opinion, I think it would be better for the board to make comments on the agenda and then the public makes comments on the agenda, because sometimes things are brought up by the board that the public does not understand, and when they hear it, they're like, oh, yeah, they hear the positions of the board, and then they say, I don't like this position because A, B, and C. It's too late to comment because we're first.
We actually, years ago, we did do it that way, and we changed it because board members want to hear what the public had to say first. That was like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we changed it.
I just felt like even today, we talked, and then the public talked about the block and what they do not like. I think it was more helpful for
Yeah,
us to
okay.
understand.
All right, all right, let me, anybody want to change the order as suggested by Rita? Who wants to do it that way? Okay. All right, then we have direction on this policy. So here's,
I have one question.
yeah,
It's a very simple question. So we're at hour. So after, say, 20 minutes, the public has spoken and everybody's called in. And nobody calls in, like, we're gonna stop after 5 or we're gonna sit there for 40 minutes.
no, that's it.
No, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no, we're not.
I want to sit, I want to say, oh, we got to sit here, we got an hour, and wait, somebody comes in 15 minutes later, I'm just asking a question, that's all I want to know.
Okay, no, do we want to continue with the written questions, or are we good with the colon?
Say that again?
Right now, we have the Google document. Do we want to continue that, or I think that the colon should vitiate that, but
Correct. We have one, right? Correct. No. Right. Yeah.
so we have direction on the policy.
yeah,
We're done.
we're done. Okay.
Next policy,
Thank you.
1400.
And Denise will write that up and get it home to everybody so we can take a look at it for first reading.
So our first reading will be December.
If they can get, yeah, okay, December. Okay, policy 1400, job descriptions. That was just a citation change, right? It's just some NJSA or something. Okay, so there's really nothing to discuss. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I would like to discuss it.
1400? Okay, Vlad, then Wilson.
I apologize guys very much. I'm going back to this policy that we spent our discussion. We decided to do voice. What happens with the Google form? Are we keeping Google form or?
No, Google Forms out.
Do we come down on this?
We replaced it with the code. Does anybody want to keep the Google form as well as the code?
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
So, Mr. Reno, you answered Mr. Santana's question before about correspondence versus I'd like this read by the board to the community during
Yes.
our meeting. If someone does have a question, they can send an email, and it's not just related to correspondence. It can be read during the board meeting for clarification, or no?
And I think the question, you want me to go back to this?
Because then it would eliminate the need for a Google form, correct?
Well, let me just say this. Speaking generally, and this has been said several times, any member of the community can email any member of this board at any time. Any member of the community can email any administrator at any time. These folks are responsive, they'll answer your question. The purpose, as I understood it, of the Google form was to provide an opportunity for in-the-moment synchronous communication by the public that were not in person at the meeting to communicate with the board live, real time. They weren't here, this is a way for them to communicate. That has now been replaced by, you can pick up the phone and call. You can come in person and come to the mic. You can pick up the phone and call. You'll be given an opportunity to speak. If you want to email at any other time, you can email at any other time. Okay? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Policy 1400.
So what,
Wait, what? What's your question?
I want to ask for thumbs up, thumbs down,
Okay.
if we're keeping.
How many board members want to keep the Google form
Well,
along?
I have a question about what you just said, before you take a vote on it.
Okay.
The question is, what happens if you have multiple calls made at the same time? How does that,
I think that's do you want to jump on that? I think that's a technical issue. I think that's exactly what Nick was saying before. Let's talk about theory, and then let's let the experts tell us. Just like most districts, when we had Zoom, they were paying attention to the order in which folks were logging on and raising their hand and indicating they wanted to speak. So let's talk to the IT folks about how we're gonna, bank and hold in some type of queue, if you will, the folks who call in. Right?
gotcha, okay.
Thank you.
Are you saying you will allow to keep the Google form that we have now?
I want to, yeah. Thumbs up, who wants to keep the Google form?
Okay, who wants to keep the Google form?
That's in addition.
In addition to the call-in? Okay, you got 5, got to keep the Google form. Okay. Job descriptions, 1400. That's the same thing, and then, well.
Yes. I remember when we had the board retreat, Mr. Lee stated that it is a best practice to, for the board to review the job descriptions, and being that, and I believe it will serve the board and the district well if we insert in the job description a language that addresses that aspect. So when we have a vacancy, right, that will be the ideal time to review the job description. Okay, not every time we have a vacancy review a job description, but I think we should put something in the language here, because in the time that I've been on the board, they have been, we have a lot of outdated job descriptions. So I think if we can put something here that encourage the board to review the job descriptions, I think that will serve us well.
Well, it does say job descriptions will be reviewed periodically. So,
I think it doesn't say who's going to do that, and I think it should be a little more specific, because that's the current policy, and we have a lot of outdated job descriptions. So I think it needs to be a little more direct, and give us a better,
Can I ask?
Sure.
Which job descriptions are you speaking of?
I'm not going to refer any job description in particular. I'm not going to refer any particular job description, because, I don't feel comfortable doing that in public.
I thought that's what your suggestion was.
No, what I'm suggesting is, in the job description policy, inserting language to encourage the board to review job description upon a vacancy. That's it. It could be done by the personnel committee, which according to Matt Lee from the New Jersey School Board Association, that is the best practice. So we should do what is the best practice. But right now, what's on the agenda, what's on the policy, it's not working.
I just want to say something. We've staff members that are coming and going every meeting, every single meeting. I mean, we have bus drivers, nurses, elementary teachers, special education teachers, assistant principals. So technically, every meeting there is a vacancy, and then that vacancy is filled. So if we were to add language in here that said that whenever there's a vacancy, that job description will be reviewed by the board, we'd be reviewing job descriptions on a monthly basis.
That's not what I specifically said. Not every time there is a job, not every time there is a vacancy. What I meant was having the personnel committee review the job descriptions. It doesn't necessarily have to be every time, at each time. But I'm saying review the job description to make sure it's, it's up to date.
So you want to put in,
it doesn't
the
hurt
board
us.
and administration, will you review the job descriptions periodically? So, job description will be reviewed periodically by the board and the personnel committee?
Can I comment on that very briefly?
Yes.
So, if I may, those folks have their hands up. I think this is worded very deliberately by Strauss, keeping in mind the ethical limits of this board and who reports to this board and who does not. It would be inappropriate for this board to develop a job description for a bus driver.
I did not say develop.
Mr. Santana, would you let him finish, please?
Yes,
He's
yes.
pausing
But
for breath.
I'm trying to make sure
But he's
that
pausing for a breath, so
I'm
let him
not-
finish.
The policy says at the top, the board shall adopt job descriptions for CSA, school business administrator / board secretary, and each managerial supervisory position. Adopt, doesn't say craft, doesn't say review. Adopt. If you look at the bottom, job descriptions will be reviewed periodically. Again, reviewed, not developed, not drafted. And I think that is intentional and very well worded because of the boundaries. If the board, my suggestion is this, if the board has concerns about how current job descriptions are, it's direction to the administration. This is an administrative role. Not that the board would be reviewing, evaluated, or otherwise. So if the board had a concern about how current managerial supervisory position, how current the English department chair's job description is, the direction would be to the administration. We want you to take a look at this and let us know if you think it's current or not. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you.
With all due respect, Mr. Comino, your comments contradict what we were told by the New Jersey School Board Association.
I've never heard that from
Okay, I heard from the.
I don't want to get into an argument.
No, I'm just clarifying what we don't write job descriptions. We review the job description and we approve them. So what I said was review. And the Matt Lee, the training for the New Jersey School Board Association, specifically projected on the projector on that Saturday morning at the high school that the personnel committee can review job description. There's no any ethical issue reviewing a job description. But maybe we can add, we could add something like every 5 years, ensure they are up to date, at least for the last 5 years.
All right, Vlad, Julie, Ron.
I think I just want to echo what John said. This policy is specifically talking about chief school administrator, school business administrator, board secretary, and each managerial supervisory position. This policy is not talking about teachers, not talking about paraprofessionals, not talking about bus drivers. It's only about this specific list. So we're not going to review teacher's job description or paraprofessional job description. And having said that, I personally don't mind reviewing these registrations when they have opening, and based on what I remember, it's not frequently that we have these kind of openings. Usually people that will hire at a board meeting, they are not usually supervisory position. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's at least my recollection.
Julie?
My question was in response to where it states the chief school administrator, so that would be Mr. Norcia. Is there a reason that it's Mr. Norcia and not you, Steve? Wouldn't that be your job? To review and develop. So my suggestion would be that it would, if it's you and Nick, or in collaboration, or we change this to being you, because if I'm not mistaken, that's what you do, and that's why your job is so important here in this town.
Yes, Denise, go ahead.
So right now, the only,
Speak into the mic, man.
14,
It's on. It's on.
For today, the only piece that we were reviewing was the policy, because just the statutory citations were outdated. The policy 1400 also has a regulation. That regulation is updated, so we're not reviewing it for purposes of updating our policies. In the regulation, which is much more specific as to what has to be included in the job description, whose responsibility it is, I am named in that piece.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you. So the regulation outlines what we need to include in the job description and whose function it is to do that. So yes, it does provide that the Director of Human Resources maintains the job descriptions, reviews them, updates them, and will provide them to the board to adopt.
Thank you so much. That
Yes.
provides a lot more information for me.
Thank you. Ron?
No, my question is answered. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I guess the question is, do we want to add language, job description will be viewed periodically? We want to change it every 3 years?
Yes. Yes.
You
At
want
least every 5 years.
Okay, how many people want to stay the same? Okay, thank you. All right, that's it. Move on. 1620. Administrative employment content. What do you got here, Denise? All right, what page do we,
If you will start,
go to?
1620, correct, Chief?
1620, yeah, 1620, do 1620, okay. There's a bunch of strike, so the strikeouts are,
exactly, so the-
strikeouts that are old language and the bold and the.
so the, yes, correct. So the first part that you're seeing is what Strauss Esme is proposing for us to adopt, and they have already included the changes that were already in either the strikeouts or the bold. And the bold and the strikeouts are just attached to, you just go right after page 7, you'll start again page 1 of 7, and then you'll begin to identify that.
Rita, you have something on this?
Yeah, I guess page 5, it talks about marigold. Do we have to include marigold? Can we strike that out if our agent may not participate in marigold?
The 1642. I don't know the 16.
Page 4.
Page 4 and 5. Oh, I'm looking at the script. It's number 9.
Talking about page 5 of 7?
Well, I'm looking at the strike, it says part 9, if that helps. Page 5.
Yeah, but since they're here early on.
We don't have a 1642.
Okay, all right, but John wants to say something first.
The change here, if you look at what's lined out is general. So right above what is in bold, no provision for bonus shall be made except where, and then it talks about 6A23A31. What that regulation says is what's listed here. and that is, it can be quantitative and or qualitative, can't be more than 3 quantitative, can't be more than 2 qualitative, ECS has to approve. This doesn't require the board to make bonus payment. This is simply saying that in the event the board negotiates a contract with the chief school administrator that includes bonus, it has to follow this regulation, and this is what it says. That's why Strauss recommended this change.
Can we, as a district, decide not to do merit goals at all and just strike that completely out of our language? Is that possible, or we have to have this one?
Strauss is recommending that you have this because this is the law, right? Or this is the regulation. It's not the law. This doesn't matter practically unless the contract that you have with the superintendent provides it, right? You're not paying a bonus goal unless the contract says that it's been negotiated and he works toward, did he get a bonus goal? No. So he didn't get a bonus goal, right? So this is simply referring to what the regulation says. In the event that at some time in the future, you change the contract or negotiated a contract with bonus goals.
I'm thinking.
Anybody else? I don't know what they did first. Okay, Mark and
Yeah, thank you. We've had many contentious evenings discussing bonus goals and merit goals. And I thought it was the consensus of this board not to have any more merit goals or bonus pay. So if it is deleted from here, then there is never going to be an opportunity to offer it, which I think is what most of us wanted when we voted in that manner. To have it in there is then going to give an opportunity for the discussion. So I think we really need to say, do we want to start excluding these from new jobs or not? I'm in favor of excluding them. Thank you.
So, what you're saying, and what I think Rita's saying, is take out all the paragraph 1. Am I understanding that correctly? All right, Mr. Santana, you got something?
Yeah, I also, I'm in favor of what I thought the board agreed, which was no merit goals. And I think we need to make sure we have that in writing, so there's no room for interpretation in the future. And I think we need to, like Mr. Valley stated, we need to remove what needs to be removed and add what needs to be added, so we don't have this anymore.
Cindy?
Can I ask a question to John?
Yes.
Are we allowed to change a mandatory policy? If we put in anything we want, if it's mandatory?
So
Don't they give us certain options that the board has to adopt in certain mandatory policies, and those are the ones that we discuss? I mean, if this wording is in here and the word mandatory is there,
right.
I'm not sure why I understand the position of the board, I was in agreement with it too.
Right.
But this is a mandatory policy, and if the wording has to be in there, I think it's more dangerous not to have it in.
I would agree with that. Also, a couple of comments on the board, the pleasure of the board. This policy could say the superintendent gets these merit goals, and it means nothing, because it has to be in his contract and approved by the ECS. This policy could say the superintendent sitting here now and every superintendent until the end of time gets no merit goals. And if the next board negotiates a contract with merit goals and it's approved by the ECS, he gets the merit goals. This is simply referencing the regulation. It's not binding the board. In fact, this board, as it relates to future employment of a future superintendent, can't bind a future board. In fact, this board sitting right now after an election before the new board is reorganized can't bind future boards in certain long-term circumstances. So this policy is simply referencing the regulation, that's all. And I think that's why it's a mandated policy. I have not looked at whether or not the State Department requires these boundaries to be placed here. I think that's why Strauss is saying it's mandated, because there are certain boundaries under law when it comes to negotiation. Not, and I get the point that this board does not want bonuses. But the boundaries as to what employment is set by regulation and statute, and I think that's why this policy's been written.
Julie?
Thank you for that question, Cindy, because it allows for me not to ask the same. As a board as a whole, it's majority rules. I'm not in favor of reducing those merit goals. I am grateful to our new business administrator and his experience, but I think how our former business administrator went out was really poor form, and I think that has to do with how things went with her contract. That being said, democracy allows us to have an ever-changing board because we vote every year, and just because the majority of this board felt that it should go away doesn't mean the next board will. So I would be very hesitant to take this out of this current policy.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. Santana, and then we're gonna take a vote.
This is the last time I'm going to speak about merit goals. The public does not have the stomach for merit goals. If a future board wants to have the stomach for merit goals, we have a democracy, I agree. But people in furlough are breaking their backs to pay these taxes. Merit goals for public employees is something unheard of. It's very not common. How do I know? I've been a teacher for 18 years. And I have never heard of bonuses except 2 districts in 18 years. I am not going to give away the taxes of my neighbors with bonuses. I'm not doing that for one person. I'm not supporting bonuses. If a future board wants to give away the taxes in bonuses, hey, but elections have consequences, and we'll have it.
All right, thank you. How many people would like to just leave it as it is because it's a mandatory policy? All right, it's going to stay as it is, 5-4. Okay, next policy, 1643.
It's another mandated policy.
Another mandated policy. And just a little blurb there.
To the policy and it provides sort of a roadmap.
You speak in the microphone?
You keep forgetting it, man.
The policy is rewritten and it provides, the family policy provides a roadmap for district employees to have a clear picture of.
Yeah, speak louder.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. So the family leave policy essentially follows the Federal Medical Leave Act and the New Jersey Family Leave Act. And what it does is it provides a roadmap for us to follow for individuals who want to or need to take time off from work to either for their own serious health condition or to serve as a caretaker for a family member with a serious health condition. It also provides for time for expectant mothers or fathers to have child bonding time with their children. So some of the changes that have been included is they have provided for time for quarantine time, for time for an epidemic. So they have brought the policy to some of the parts for COVID. They have also included language that will provide specific information as to notice requirements for staff members to provide the district with notice requirements, and also for purposes of what certifications, physician certifications, the board will require for individuals who are seeking to take some time. So it provides, this policy provides a very nice roadmap for our employees at times when they are seeking to take some time off to either for themselves or take care of family members. So it's 37 pages. We can't go through all the different changes, but it's significant changes. There are, however, parts in it that the board does need to make a decision on.
Well, why don't you walk us through those?
What?
Why don't you walk us through those?
Okay. So one of the items, yes, if we could go to page 5. One of the items on page 5 that the board will need to decide is how to calculate the time period from when a staff member has first gone out and then if they wish to go out again for a leave. So let's say in the year 2000, I went out on a time period to have a child and then child bonding, and then 2 years later, I want to go back out. It provides a calculation for us to determine that they're either within the time frame that they're able to take family leave again, and also be entitled to the family leave insurance. So it provides because of the 24-month restrictions. So you can do the calendar year, any fixed leave year, the 24-month period measured forward from the date any staff member first leave under NJFLA, and then the one that is recommended by Strauss is a rolling 24-month period measured backward from the date a staff member uses any leave under NJFLA. That is actually what New Jersey provides us to do at the current time. That's the most common practice. And that is the reason why Strauss is recommending it. And at this time, this is the way that we will calculate if someone went on a leave in the year 2000, they want to go back out on a leave in 2001, we will say, nope, you've done, you still are within the 24-month. You'll have to wait till the year 2002, after your 24 months.
So
because under New Jersey FLA, you can take up to 12 weeks within a 24-month period.
Okay. Are we okay with the recommended rolling? Okay. I'll take through that one. All right.
And then there is, you'll do another calculated one. Hang on one second. Page 20.
Page 20 what?
Yep, 20 of the 37.
20.
And it's very similar. The method to determine the 12-month period in which the 12 weeks of FMLA leave entitlement occurs will be. And again, they do make the similar suggestions, and the one that Strauss recommends is a rolling 12-month period measured backward from the date a staff member uses any FMLA leave.
Are we all good with that? Same recommended? Okay.
Thank you.
Any more choices?
No, not for this one. Please double check that. I think I marked the ones that you need.
Are you doing questions or not?
Yeah, there's no more choices. We just got to check them. Okay, Mark had his hand up. Ron, did you want to say something else?
Yes.
Ron was first.
It's on page 14 of this, where it says the board may deny NJFLA leave due to staff member. I don't understand the logic for this one. It says the staff member, salaried staff member, who is among the highest paid, 5% of the board staff members, or 7 highest paid staff members of the board. Why are they excluding these or commenting on these?
Limiting, and they do this is under the FMLA, they do the same thing under New Jersey FLA, to limit, it's because of the significance of those individuals to the organization. So it provides boards with, greater ability to deny the leave. Do you agree?
Perfect.
Where with our staff members, other employees that do not fall within either the 5%, I believe for the FMLA, 7%, it does, we're almost required to allow the leave as long as they have provided us with the notice requirements and they provided us with the physician certification and all of the information that goes with that piece. But there are exceptions for the top folks at the organization because of the disruption to the organization if those individuals would be out for a significant period of time.
I just don't think it's fair.
Yeah, that's the law though, so we're stuck with it.
It is statutory.
I'm with you, Mark.
Ron?
Yeah, probably Mark, I agree. When the law first came out, it was very scary because we had a secretary, like me in my business, I had a secretary and a mechanic, they both went out at the same time. We were like, that's gonna crush me. And they were like, well, it's too bad, but then I guess they listened after a while. Can a person go on FMLA but not use it consecutively, like they need to take it, so they can vary it off? Okay.
Yes, so you may use FMLA and New Jersey FLA either in a continuous manner or intermittent. And again, with those, they do also on an intermittent leave, they do provide that the individual does try to do on a regular schedule, provides enough notice so that there is the least amount of disruption.
City Ron?
Yeah, that's it.
Rita?
So page 16, 9, 1, it says,
I'm sorry, what page?
16,
16, 1, 6?
yeah,
9, 1.
9-1. It says, depending upon either the school district practice or provision of collective bargaining agreement, I was wondering, can we list the school practice, district practice in it? Because if I was a staff member, or I would not know what a district practice would be.
I would assume this is clarified in the collective bargaining agreements. That's why it's.
There's something about it in the contract, but I don't know what it says, but I know it's in there.
How about the staff members that are not collective bargaining, and how would they know what how would they know what, does it listed on their contract if they're
So
not
is-
collective?
Wait, so you're saying that the people that aren't in the people that have individual contracts?
Non-bargaining.
Non-bargaining.
It is listed in their contract exactly the district practice?
You know what we could do, we could look at it before the next reading of it.
Right.
But what if
Yeah,
the
yeah,
district
so like, who would they, which contract would they follow? Do you know what I mean?
I think we would ask Denise.
Yeah, so the practice right now is that they will be using their sick time, and then beyond the point of the sick time is then they will begin to use the FMLA time. So that is the practice of the district right now.
Would it be possible to list that in the policy, so at least during one of our other policies, they say we need to have structure and that clearly defined. Would it be possible just to list the district practice?
We have, but it might be different for teachers versus principals versus non-bargaining versus
Or the
part-time.
or the vacation, some individuals do have accrued, to have vacation time, our instructional staff does not, or any 10-month staff does not. So you'd have to look to see also, because if you do have vacation time, personal time can be used also, or your sick time.
So it depends on the contract?
Well, it would, because any instructional staff members who are 10 months don't accrue, they're in vacation time. They don't earn vacation time. They have sick time, which is statutory, and then they have the personal days, which are contractual.
So would you be able to list if it's a 10-month employee versus a 12-month employee? Can we do that? Would that be okay?
No. I think, no, it's gonna be, you can't put all the provisions from all the different contracts into a policy.
Only to 10 months and 12 months employees.
What about people that work 12 months but part-time? What about people that have individual contracts in 11 months? So I just think you're asking too much in this policy when somebody can just go and look at their contract.
How about if they don't have a contract?
I don't think anybody does have a contract.
But I mean, like, just, they don't have
Every individual in the district has some kind of a contract. So, all right, I don't want to go back and forth with you, but how many people want to have?
My hand's up.
Okay, I'm sorry, Julian and Ruth. I'm sorry.
So there's a difference between district practice and policy. Policy must be followed, district practice can be adjusted or amended. I hear you, I hear what you're saying, especially because as someone who's had to go through this, sometimes it is really hard. I worked in a district when I was on maternity leave that did not have an HR department. The District of Maryland is very fortunate to have a very strong human resources department. That's what their job is to provide that information if someone is confused and if they can't find it in our contract. Practice changes. To place it in our policy and then something changes makes it absolutely 100% we have to follow because it becomes a policy. So to put a current practice that could be ever changing would require that we have to do this for every single person moving forward.
Edit, Julian? Mr. Santan?
I agree with Mr. Velovic. I think the spirit of what I'm hearing from what you're saying is we need clarity. There's too much open to interpretation. We have either, it says, will depend upon either the school district's practice or provision in the collective bargaining agreement. Which one? You know, if I'm reading this, I'm going to say, if I'm an employee here, I'm going to say, which one? The practice or the collective bargaining? And my concern is fairness, okay? I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but when was the last time we notified an employee of the district practice for NFL and for NJFLA? Do we do that as a practice to notify them of what is our practice when it comes to that?
Policy, which is online. We do have a policy, which is online, and we also have, there's posters all over, that we're required to, there's posters all over the schools, in all main offices, in addition to the district policy.
Yes, I understand, but I think what a board member who just spoke is stating is there's policy, there's practice, and there's collective bargaining, all right? So, I do agree, what's in the policy, we must follow. What's the district policy can change. But many employees, I'm not speaking of furlough, but many employees are not told what is the practice. All right? So I think I really want to hear from the superintendent. What is the superintendent's take on this? That would be very important for me because I want to make sure that we are being fair to the employees.
My take on this is that we're getting into the weeds. I feel like we have contracts that the board negotiates that actually specifies it, and for the very small population that we're speaking about, that could maybe be 20 to 30 people that may not fall under a collective bargaining agency or association. These meetings, I mean, there's signs everywhere. We have a 37-page policy right now. We have an attorney that we rely on heavily, state law, and these conversations are happening on a daily basis when it comes to FMLA. So I think we're kind of pigeonholing ourselves, I feel like, to just writing something in here just for the sake of writing something in here. I think that we're really just spinning our wheels right now. That's my own personal opinion.
All right.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that comment. I still think our fellow board members' comment overall, I think it's in the right direction because, you know, we need clarity. This is not clear to me. What you just stated is clear to me. So I think we need to clarify this to make it a little more straight to the point.
Okay. All right, let me ask board members, how many board members are comfortable with the language as it is now? Okay, thank you. Moving on. All right, policy 5751. I'm sorry about it.
A new matter on this policy. Page 12.
Wait, 1643?
1643,
Okay, what page?
page 24. Last line on page 24. I'd like to cross out the word telegraph.
Okay, all right, I think we can agree, telegraph can go.
Telegraph.
B2, telegraph.
Page 24.
Wait a minute, add singing telegram in its place.
Like, do you guys still get faxes?
We do, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
The doctor's offices
Yeah.
will oftentimes.
County.
Yep.
Sean, I'll ask briefly.
Yeah, sure.
Vlad, I was in negotiations once, and the board's recommendation was to take out the word telegraph. And it was difficult, it was head to head, they fought with everything, and the unit said no. And I said, you know what? We're gonna break. If you can find a telegraph in this building, we'll withdraw our proposal.
Okay, 5751. Walk us through this one a little bit,
Yes.
please.
So one of the big parts of this is the designation of a Title IX coordinator, which the district has designated. And then the addition of investigators.
Open the microphone, please. Thank you.
I'm not looking at that.
One of the additions tonight is the designation of a Title IX coordinator. Our district has already designated an individual to be our Title IX coordinator. The other piece is just required investigator who may be the Title IX coordinator to investigate alleged harassment of a student. A decision maker who to designate have an individual to serve as a decision maker who may not be the Title IX coordinator or investigator to objectively evaluate the evidence and reach the conclusion if there's an investigation. And then an appeal officer who may not be the same person as the Title IX coordinator, investigator, decision maker to hear any of the appeals. So if we, let's get to the policy. And you'll see those parts outlined within the policy. And also within the regulation, it'll be provides more specific information as to what the role of each of these individuals will be if it leads to an investigation.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments, Mark?
Yes, who is our Title IX coordinator?
Corey Robinson, our Director of Athletics.
Any other board members on this one? Vlad?
Are we now discussing just the policy or both policy and regulation?
What?
Are we now discussing just the policy or are we discussing both the policy and regulation?
Everything.
Okay, then on regulation, we have a choice to make. Page 8 out of 14 on the regulation with a choice. And I'm honestly unsure which one we need to make.
We're on regulation for sexual harassment of students, and on page 8 of 14, the board does need to make it.
Say page 8.
Number 9.
But maybe John could comment on what the difference exactly is between these two choices. I'm not sure.
Yeah, thank you. So this comes with a change under regulations that was developed under the last presidential administration, and it was rolled out in higher education, and there was a lot of public chatter about it. And so preponderance of the evidence is the civil standard, right? So in looking at this, to reach this determination as to a complaint, the decision maker will apply preponderance of the evidence. That's 50.00001%. That's tipping the scales, right? Literally. Clear and convincing evidence is more like a criminal standard. beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not 50.0001%. It's not 60%, it's not 70%, might even be higher, clear and convincing. It's obvious, right? It's Monday Night Football, we're gonna change the call on the field because it's so clear, right? It is that obvious as opposed to the proofs are a little bit more. So that's the choice. Preponderance of the evidence, again, is tipping the scales, it's the civil standard. It's easier to find and substantiate a complaint. Option one. Option two, it's harder. It's harder to overturn the call, right? Clear and convincing. It would be harder to find and substantiate the complaint. And it was the change under the last administration to go to this second option and provide this option to fact finders and investigators.
Okay, so we want the higher evidence standard or lower evidence standard.
Right.
Anybody else questions, comments on 5751?
Which one was assigned?
Huh? Yeah, no, I know, but I'm asking if there's any other questions.
5751.
So the administration's recommendation is the first.
Preponderance standard.
Preponderance.
How many people are okay with the preponderance standard? Okay. Okay. 8690. What? Did I skip something? Oh, yeah, we skipped the rate. We did the rate. Okay. 8690, do policy and rate.
Which policy?
8690, monitor devices on school vehicles. Mark?
Yes. The very opening is saying that there are different individuals that we could choose from. The transportation supervisor, building principal, superintendent of schools, or so forth. Why is it not the director of security mentioned here?
You want the rate?
One.
You want the rate?
I don't believe the director of security uses a vehicle. I don't believe the director of security uses a district-owned vehicle.
I still don't understand.
The director of security does not use a district-owned vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay, I get you. 8690, anybody else have questions, comments on 8690? Okay, okay. All right.
Refer
No,
to ordinances in order to maintain a safe and
Yeah.
secure environment.
Which one is? Wait, flag and then.
Yeah, this is regulation 8690 gives us lots of choices here.
Right, that's the reason.
Right,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Which one is, what,
So it follows the sexual harassment one?
oh, it's okay on this one.
It should say,
No, it's got a P there. Oh, there it is. Okay, we have some choices to make.
Yeah. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not who uses the vehicle, this is who installs monitoring devices or supervises installation of monitoring devices. And there is a choice here for other specified. So, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can have director of security here who would supervise installation of monitoring devices.
Who were you saying should be doing it?
Director of security.
Director of security.
Okay. It's Santana.
I'm not opposed to it. However, I think we need to make sure we allow the superintendent we allow the superintendent the flexibility to make an appointment other than, just in case we do not have one, just in case the position, changes, or if we don't have an act, if the gentleman goes on leave, or so I think we should have you know, the designee of the superintendent, you know, the director of transportation or the designee of the superintendent.
Nick, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, I think leaving it broad to that degree, the designee of the superintendent, or the other option could be the business administrator, because technically the business administrator oversees all the vehicles of the district and the record keeping and the resolutions that maintain all the vehicles. So it could come from the business administrator's office. So it could be the business administrator or the director of security, or the designee of the superintendent, and then it leaves you wide open for one of those three.
I'm not opposed to that. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Somebody else? No? All right, so, you got that, any?
It's the business administrator.
Or security?
Or designee of the superintendent.
Okay. All right, use.
We have one.
Up and down, use number 1, number 2.
Where is that?
This is activate the recording equipment.
One above it.
Above.
Storage security number 1. Agreed? Yeah.
Why the security?
Storage security, all storage will be stored by
So are we gonna just use the same language?
I think you should just use same language for all of them, yeah.
Yes.
That way, it's up to Nick how he wants to do it. Okay, he's on the ground. All right, we good, okay, just using the same language for all of them? All right, good, that's easy.
There's one more. There's one more.
And this is,
You're listening, you're doing the same?
Yeah, we're gonna do, hold on a minute,
All the same?
all the same.
can I say something?
1 second. Okay. Okay, so they're all the same. Okay, all right, look.
I'm concerned about something here on, there's no page, but there's no page.
Which,
So what,
No,
you
but
talking about
number-
8690?
On viewing or listening,
yeah.
on the regulation, I am concerned about number 6. It says all viewing will be in the presence of the, I don't think that the transportation of security needs to be there. I think it should be, the superintendent's, designee. I think.
The only, it leaves us open, which is fine, because it could be that person, which is fine. The reason why that word is there is because the majority of these refer to school buses, and that's why the transportation supervisor is there. So a lot of the, cameras that are placed on school buses, that's what, that's in the spirit of this policy, maybe. But I'm fine with the superintendent's designee because that person falls under it, so.
Okay. What do you guys do?
And then just a written log will be maintained by the, what's the next one?
This is administrative.
Just superintendent, super.
Yeah,
It's not,
yeah, do the same again.
Same on the other. Okay.
yeah,
And then the last one is purchase maintenance replacement for the equipment and supplies. Do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, leaves in the same,
Can I ask one question?
yes, you can.
So if someone's looking for a video and it's from a bus, that means to access the video, the transportation supervisor needs to call you, you give them permission to review videos that then need to be cut and given to whoever asked for it? Doesn't that seem like a,
Who do you think is gonna ask for it?
if there's a potential bully?
But if it's my designee, I could always I can say to the transportation supervisor, I allow you to look at video of the school buses at any time, so they don't have to call me all the time.
Like, an ABS may ask for a video from the bus. If the ABS has to ask the transportation supervisor, and then the transportation supervisor always has to call Nick first.
those are rare
I'm
instances.
just asking.
So that conversation actually very well may happen with our anti-bullying coordinator, so that could potentially happen, and most likely would, if that did happen, but, you know, that or just looking at a video of the buses and transportation director are kind of two different things. So I think one would maybe warrant a phone call, and the other one probably wouldn't.
You had me scared there for a minute, but like, you thought people could, you know, public was gonna be asking.
Oh, no, I mean like.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So did I, Gene. So did I, Gene.
All the difficult stuff that's happening on the buses these days.
Okay. Denise,
The last, can I change your mind?
what?
The last one, right, Denise, is the one at the last Board of Education meeting, which Mrs. Failovich, I believe you had asked if we would add this paragraph. I believe-
0131?
I believe this paragraph was, it's 0131, correct? Yeah, that the paragraph be added that if a recommendation for a new or revised bylaw or policy results from referral for study, the proposed draft will be submitted to the board for discussion and approval on first reading. The proposed draft will be made available to staff members and the public, and comment will be invited. Changes in the draft may be made by a simple majority vote when a draft is presented for approval on the first reading. That's exactly how it worked this week as well. The policies were made available to the public. We've been doing that. It wasn't always the practice of the Board of Education, but I believe we started that within like the last year or so. And so these policies were made available to the public. I will tell you though, something we did change tonight, and we hedged our bets and gambled and got it right. We only made 10 copies tonight, and we made it because it is 100 pages, and that wasn't including the abolished policies. So we're going to be making a limited amount of copies, just so we don't kill a small forest, and we will have the QR code so that you can pull it up on your computer or your phone. But we will be making it available. We did this time. We scanned them and we put them up. They're on our website. You can always find them. We have nothing to hide. We'll be more than happy to help direct you to look at the policies. So they are available. There will be limited copies when you do come here, but it will be a QR code. But that'll also be for our regular quarterly monthly meetings as well.
Thanks.
I have no issue with this. I don't know if
Saving no retreat, that's good, I like that. All right, so we're done with our portion, right?
So
Oh, wait, what do we got?
this, all the bold is.
We good with all the bolded language that we put in from last time? Okay, all right. I'm gonna open it to public if they, oh, we can do abolishment? All right, anything to talk about with abolished policies? Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have to clear, but wait. All these nice people have been sitting here for 2.5 hours, so. Any board member, any public members want to comment on any of the policies we just discussed? Okay, now we're gonna vote, right? We're gonna vote on this stuff now? All right, could I have a motion for, well, number 1, first reading, number 2, second reading, number 3, abolish policies regulation. Number 1, we're not doing 0167 because they have to write it, so that's not going to be our first reading tonight.
Second.
Ron and Mr. King.
No, that's the way.
1 through 3, except for 0167. But that's got to be, well, let's do it. All right, a roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo,
Yes.
Mrs. Failovich,
Yes.
Mr. Itkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Quackenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Mr. Spindell,
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes. Okay, can I have a motion to recess into closed session to discuss?
Next question. So, we did not approve 0167, so when are we going to approve it? Next month, on the policy meeting?
Yeah, we're gonna write it up and send it to the board, so everybody's clear on the language, and then we'll vote on it at the next meeting, probably December, at the December meeting.
The December policy meeting? Or-
Yeah, December policy meeting or December board meeting, whichever one happens.
Whichever one happens first.
And that will be the first reading?
Yes. Have a question, Rita?
Yes.
Speaking of my family.
Yes.
Just wondering.
Second meeting of the policy.
0131.
Oh, I need to abstain from that, sorry.
0131?
Yep.
No, I did all five. All three in one.
Why are we discussing?
All right. Motion to recess into closed session. And it was, Mike.
Second. Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
if we did it.
Now we can do a roll call and then get a question. You didn't do a roll call when I wasn't looking, did you?
Mr. Barbarillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Failovich?
Yes.
Mr. Itkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Mrs. Strickler?
Yes.
This is.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Mr. Spindell?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes. Do we need a 5-minute break?
Yes. Asking for it.